Welcome, Amplified Marriage Podcast listeners. I'm Brian.
I'm Natalie.
We are back. It has
Been a hot minute.
It's been a hot minute. It's been a long road for these last 9 months. Our last episode was in February of 2022. So
Yeah.
early this year. We had the play going on. We had new church things happening. We had all kinds of things that were happening.
You're going to want to grab a coffee because
Yeah.
we got a lot to talk about today.
We have some things we want to talk about. And so we just wanted to say just thank you for holding on for these last months. Even though we weren't here, we were still getting emails. We were still hearing from people. People were responding to us on Instagram and Gmail and just responding to all the things that were going on. And people kept on listening to the podcast. And so it's really great to see that people really were just engaged and really want some tools to make their marriage better.
Yeah. And I don't know, can we say this is like post-COVID? I don't know. It's been a weird year.
Yeah, it's been a bit off.
And we're going to get into a little bit of why that was, but we're still together. We still love each other. We're still married. We just really felt like that time of the year, for me particularly, I'm a vocal director for a musical theater in town. And so our productions are in March. And from February to the middle of March, it's just non-stop.
Yeah, it's busy.
Right? You just kind of get off your regular, downloading or whatever it's called.
Rhythm.
Yeah.
Rhythm.
Regular rhythm. And then we were planning a big, huge trip, and then it just kind of spirals.
And since we finally got into, and so we had the play, and then that summer we took our kids to California for 2 weeks on a trip that we've been trying to do.
It's been like the trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, it was one of those dream trips and then right after that we had big church launch back into some normal volunteer service nights, and then this year was our 40th anniversary as a church, and then after that we had more things that were happening, and then it's just been such a busy season for us.
That's right.
And then we started getting phone calls and texts and people asking, so
what's going on?
What are you doing with the podcast, guys?
That's a really good question.
Yeah. And so we stopped and we kind of prayed about it, and Natalie was being asked by people outside of me being present with her, and then vice versa. And I think people that we knew really found value in what we were sharing and how we were sharing it, and just being able to have that kind of stuff on tap. Honestly, we use our own podcast and others, but we use our own podcast sometimes when we do our pre-marriage coaching with young couples, or marriage coaching with older couples, whoever it is, and just to send them a podcast, just to stuff. Like one of our most popular ones, and I encourage you all to go back to listen to it if you started in the middle, but is Unmet Expectations. It was episode 1. We had a couple that we know actually said it took them 5 months to get past that one, because every time they listened to it, they got more and more out of it, and it sparked a lot more conversations. And what we've heard from other people is that they hear the podcast and then they fight. And then they discuss things, and the car ride or the sitting in the living room is a little bit tough or a little bit different,
right? Just
because they're being faced with things. And we say this all the time when we coach: you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
And you've heard us say that in the podcast. You don't know what you don't know. But the moment that you do know, now it's up to you to be accountable for your behavior.
That's right. For
your actions. And now you have to shift, because you do know you have to make changes, right?
I completely agree. And these are the things that we talk about. We talk about we've experienced, we've walked through as a married couple. So we're drawing from our own experiences and things. And there's still things that we haven't walked through. And then we bring on guests for those kinds of things. And so I really encourage you, if this is your first time listening, go back. This is our 3rd season now.
Yep.
And there's tons and tons of content. And part of our 9-month break was just, we didn't want to just keep a schedule and just pump out whatever just to keep it going. We really want to be mindful and really want to pray our way through, what now?
And
what next?
Also address things that people are struggling with now, because there's a lot of things that changed over COVID.
For sure.
Like the way we communicate, the relationships that we have, how we respond to each other. There's sometimes, in some cases of couples that we know throughout COVID, the relationship actually got stronger.
Yeah.
That was the case with us and our children and some of our really close friends. Is our relationships got stronger. Like Natalie and I's marriage got better. But that wasn't the case for everyone.
No.
And then some people that had their marriage got tougher during COVID, actually when COVID got out, and then you're faced again with regular schedules, regular work every day. You're not at home. You're having to do things differently. The kids are back in school, or you're having to now make work trips or what things are going on. Then the relationship starts to shift. Again, and you just got over a shift for 2 years, and now you're having to make another one, and it just adds more stress on there. And then over the last little while, the economic status has changed for people. Groceries are more expensive, gas is more expensive, housing is more expensive, living is just more expensive.
Yeah.
And so we really wanted to make sure that the ideas and the things that we're presenting to the people that need this the most are things and discussions and conversations and problems that are real world problems, real world struggles, things, so we can actually offer that are pertinent to the situation at hand. And so we really want to make sure that as we come back, that when we come back, this is just like our trailer to the coming back. Like,
that's right.
Yeah, is going to be filled with a lot of really good content that we've been talking about and planning about, talking with some of our friends about things that are going on in their marriages and their struggles and things like that. And so we're really excited for what the season is going to hold.
Totally. And I mean, part of one, we needed a break because, you work full time. I work
partly full time.
Well, I am a full-time mom, but I also work outside the home and I vocal direct. And we're pastors in a church. And so there's a lot going on, and we're kind of split in several different directions. So really wanting to make sure that we take care of ourselves.
Right.
And do some self-care. And part of this, year of creating this memory with our children was absolutely essential.
It was necessary
for us to do that. And you know what? We didn't realize, because we're fairly frugal, I'd say. We're not out frivolously. We don't do lavish holidays, and, we generally stay local. And we had been planning this trip for a long time, and it was one that really felt out of reach for the majority of our marriage. We took our kids to Disneyland, and I have never been to Disneyland. I don't think you have.
No.
And our children certainly haven't. So it was a first experience for us all, and I didn't realize, I knew we needed a holiday. I didn't realize how important this one was going to be. And so we knuckle down more than I think we ever have in order to be able to make this a reality finally. And we could not have done it without our brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So shout out to you two. You know who you are.
Right.
So grateful. We went with Brian's sister and her husband and their 4 kids and my mother-in-law. And it was incredible.
Yeah.
And when we came back, and we all love each other, and we all get along really great, and our kids get along, and people were like, you guys holiday together? Oh my gosh. And we were like, yeah, I think we were gone for 10 days. We got back, we skipped a day, and then we were right back to family dinner and stuff like that. And it was like,
yeah, people thought we were weird. You're like, you guys didn't take a break?
Weird. And we're like, duh, we like these people.
Well, yeah, that, and the cousins were really excited to see each other again, even after that one day break.
Great.
It was this, and that's like living life together, living community together. And it was such a good memory. It was also like making up for a previous 2 years of, like, the very first year of the pandemic, my son turned 16.
Yeah.
And we had a trip planned to Alberta to go to the zoo, to go to the Drumheller Dinosaur Museum, to go to the arena, to do all this stuff. His big thing is, I want to go to, was it Boston Pizza?
Yeah.
His big, I don't know what it is with him and Boston Pizza in Alberta, but he's like, I want to go to Boston Pizza in Alberta. Yeah. And we had this whole thing planned out it was April of that year.
Yeah.
And we got shut down in March.
Yeah.
And then we had plans already in advance for my other son's birthday and my daughter. And every one of those plans got shifted. And then we thought the government just dangled a little carrot of hope in front of you in the next year. And then it got started and shut down and started and shut down. And it was just so tough to be able to manage through that.
Yep.
And again, had plans, tentative plans. Like this time you're a little more gun shy, but tentative plans.
Yep.
And you couldn't make the plans. And so you shoot them down again. And so this last year we did what it took to be able
there's
to.
the scripture, like, hope deferred makes the heart grow sick.
Is that a scripture or is that just a?
It's 100%
Is that just a
scripture.
Chinese proverb?
Look it up.
I'm going to look it up while you talk.
And isn't that true? Where, you know, and I know that our hope is not in a trip and our hope is in Jesus, but that whole idea of if you are in a situation where it feels hopeless, and for a lot of us, this pandemic really felt hopeless. I mean, we were super fortunate that we still had our jobs. And like that wasn't, well, there was always a risk, but
Oh yeah, we were faced with all the time of,
you know, and there was all of these, like the bank saying, hey, if you need to, like, what's that, like defer your payments or whatnot. And we were just like, nope, we're not doing that. We're just gonna keep plugging away, keep watching our money, and keep just
watching it
paying our
leave the
bills.
bank account.
Right. But you know what? Super grateful that it did not have an adverse effect like it did on so many people.
Yeah.
So this trip was essential for our mental health, honestly. And it was sketchy with all of the restrictions and things like that. And, you know, to go to the States here in Canada, you need to be vaccinated. And so, you know, Brian and I had talked about Novavax, which is a protein-based vaccine. And just the timeline to get that done beforehand was really sketchy.
Yeah.
And we didn't know if we'd be able to in time, because, you know, the kids can get away with not being, but there was just a lot of hoops to jump through. And I'm so glad that we did and that we were able to make that a reality.
Yeah. And so you're not wrong. Proverbs 13:12.
There you go. Want to read it?
You think as a pastor I'd know these things, but sometimes it sounds like a Chinese proverb when really it's verse. Proverbs 13:12 is where you can find the phrase, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life.
Right. And obviously our longing fulfilled is in Jesus, but you kind of get a visual
Right.
of when you're just going through life and it just seems like everything keeps compiling on each other and it's never going to get better. We're never going to get out of this cycle. It can be really draining and really outweighing on relationships.
Yep. That being said, as this is just like a welcome, and we're saying thank you to you, we just want to give you a little heads up of what this next season looks like. Season 3 looks like. We're going to be starting into a series. I believe it's probably going to end up being a 2-part series on what you've heard in the news and what you've been seeing on Twitter and things like that, and Facebook and Instagram. This idea of quiet quitting. I know people think that this is
like
the
definition
work-related.
is
is work related, but it also really pertains to our relationships. But the people also think that it's a relatively new thing. Like this generation is like, oh, we're quietly quitting. This has been around for 50 years. This isn't new. This isn't even its first or third or fourth or fifth time wave that it's kind of come up in culture.
Yeah.
And so we're really going to tackle that one and what that looks like in marriage, how that affects your marriage, and how that it really is subversive in the fact that it sometimes just creeps in and you didn't know it was there. And all of a sudden you're not really putting effort in.
And some of the stressors that sort of amplify that.
Like amplified marriage?
Right? For that slippery slope
Right.
of quiet quitting. And you might just be like, well, this is just the norm.
Right.
But hopefully we'll be able to identify some of those for you, and then it can at least spark a conversation. If you take away anything from our podcast, let it be the start of a conversation, and that could then, you know, you fan the flame, and that can really assist you in bringing some change.
Absolutely. So that's where we're starting. And then we're going to be doing, I think we're going to do an update on our unmet expectations, because we get actually, that's one of the main things that we're seeing in especially over COVID and the pandemic, and is people struggling with before it's almost like you're so busy, you could forget about expectations.
Yeah.
But over COVID, when you're at home and you're faced with it, like I was at home too, we're faced with it. Now you really are having to deal with that unmet stuff and talk about it, and it be right in your, like, it's right there. And if you don't talk about it, actually is worse, because now you're in the same space all the time.
Yeah.
And things are, and so I think we're going to get back into that a little bit. We have some friends of ours that have really had some really great struggles that we're going to bring onto the podcast. They're going to talk about dealing with pornography and things like that in their own relationship. So we have some things that we really want to touch on this year that are from real world people that have struggled with things in their marriage that are pertinent to the things that we're dealing with currently and the things that we're going on today.
That's right. So lots of series coming up. We're launching with Quiet Quitting.
Yeah, and absolutely. So we're looking forward to being able to connect with you, to hear from you, to hear what you have to say, what you want to be a part of. We have some ideas for some really cool segments on the show that we want to add to it. And so we know that you like this podcast because you've been a part of this, you've downloaded this, you've been moving forward in the things that in this and paying attention and being with us. And so it means a lot when you actually share. Now we're getting back into this. Let people know that we are on Instagram, and that's going to be up and running soon. You can follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. And again, if you have those questions and you want to know about where you can ask those questions or give us an idea or a fresh thing, you can email us at wow, it's been a while since we said this, amplifiedmarriage@gmail.com.
That's right.
And as you heard us say, and you're going to keep hearing us say, we believe that marriage can be reset,
refreshed,
recharged,
and restored.
We're so glad that we're back and we get to be with you all. Thanks for listening.
Talk to you soon.